Imagine for a moment that the world has stopped speaking to you. Not the world of human voices, of digital pings, or the relentless hum of machines, but the world itself, the deep, resonant fabric of reality that once whispered to your ancestors through the rustle of leaves and the alignment of the stars. We live in an era of unprecedented light, yet we find ourselves stumbling in a peculiar kind of darkness. We have more information than any generation in history, but we seem to have lost the meaning of the story we are in. We are told that we have finally grown up, that we have traded the childish myths of the past for the cold, hard facts of the present. But if that is true, why does the modern soul feel so profoundly orphaned? Why does the silence of the old gods feel less like a liberation and more like a haunting? Perhaps the greatest mistake of our time was believing that a myth is simply a lie or a primitive attempt to explain what science had not yet reached. We have been taught to look at the stories of Odin hanging from the world tree, or the tears of Isis, or the cosmic dance of Shiva as mere curiosities of a bygone age. But what if myth is not a substitute for science, but the very language of the soul? What if, by discarding the mythopoetic dimension of our minds, we didn't actually get rid of the gods, but instead, we accidentally killed something vital within ourselves? The mystery we are hunting today is not found in an archaeological dig or a dusty scroll. It is found in the hollow space where our connection to the sacred used to breathe. We are here to ask a dangerous question. What exactly did we kill when we chose to forget our myths? If the world feels like a machine today, it is only because we have learned to see it that way. We have replaced the temple with the laboratory and the ritual with the algorithm. We were promised that by killing the gods we would finally become the masters of our own fate, standing tall in a universe we had finally demystified. But as we look around at our restless cities and our growing sense of inner void, we must wonder if Nietzsche's famous proclamation was not a victory cry, but a funeral dirge. He warned that by wiping away the horizon with a sponge, we would find ourselves straying as through an infinite nothing. We thought we were stepping into a brighter sun, but we might have just stepped out of the only story that truly knew our names. To understand our current state of exile, we have to dismantle a very modern prejudice. We often think of reality as a collection of objects, things we can measure, weigh, and sell. In this view, a mountain is just a pile of rock, and a forest is just a source of timber. But for the vast majority of human history, reality was understood as something fundamentally symbolic. A symbol, in the traditional sense, is not a mere sign that points to something else. It is a bridge. It is the place where the visible and the invisible meet. When an ancient hunter looked at the sun, he didn't just see a ball of burning gas, he saw the visible face of an invisible intelligence. The world was a mirror, reflecting the depths of the human spirit back to itself. When we lost this symbolic vision, we didn't just change our opinions about the world, we changed the world we live in. We moved from a living cosmos into a dead universe. This is what thinkers like René Guénon called the crisis of the modern world. It is the moment when the vertical dimension of life, the link to the transcendent, was severed, leaving us trapped on a flat, horizontal plane. We are like people living in a house who have forgotten that there are windows and doors, convinced that the four walls of the material world are all that exist. But the soul is not a material thing. It cannot be fed with material goods. It hungers for the anima mundi, the soul of the world, and when it is denied its proper food, it begins to devour itself. Think of the mythic dimension as the dream language of the human race. Just as your dreams use symbols to tell you truths about your life that your waking mind cannot grasp, myths use symbols to tell the collective soul about the nature of the cosmos. When we dismiss myth as unreal, we are acting like someone who refuses to sleep because dreams aren't logical. But without sleep, the body dies, and without myth, the spirit withers. We have become a culture of the waking mind, obsessed with logic, utility, and progress, yet we are haunted by a thirst we cannot name. We have tried to fill this thirst with ideologies, with technology, and with endless consumption, but these are only shadows of the nourishment we once had. We must ask ourselves, is it possible to truly be human without a connection to the divine? We have spent the last few centuries trying to prove that we can. We have built a civilization based on the idea that man is the measure of all things, that we can create our own values and our own meaning from scratch. But the archetypes, those ancient patterns that dwell in the deepest layers of our unconscious, do not care about our modern theories. They are like the tectonic plates of the psyche. You can build whatever you want on the surface, but when they shift, the world shakes. By ignoring the deific forces within the soul, we haven't made them disappear. We have only made them angry. We have forced the gods to become our diseases, our anxieties, and our secret obsessions. If these ideas resonate with you, if you feel that there is a missing piece to the puzzle of our modern life, consider subscribing so we can continue this journey together into the heart of the great mysteries. The hunt we are on today is a search for the thread that leads back to the center of the labyrinth. We are orphans, yes, but we are orphans who still have the blood of the ancients in our veins. We are living in a time that tries to convince us that we are just biological accidents in a cold cosmos. But the myths tell a different story. They tell us that we are participants in a cosmic drama, that our lives have a weight and a significance that the material world can never explain. The question is not whether the myths are true in a historical sense, but whether we are brave enough to live in a world that is large enough for them to be real. What if the goal of life isn't to find the answers in a textbook, but to learn how to live within the sacred questions again? Before we move deeper into how we lost our way, we must first look at what we actually left behind. We must understand the science of the symbol and how the ancients used it not just to decorate their lives, but to navigate the very fabric of existence. If we are to find our way back, we must first learn how to read the language of the mysteries once more. To find our way back to the heart of the mystery, we must first confront the wreckage of our own perception. We have been conditioned to see the world as a collection of facts, a vast database of material objects that exist independently of our consciousness. We think of ourselves as observers peering into a cold, indifferent machine. But for the traditional mind, the world was never a machine. It was a cathedral of symbols. To understand what we have lost, we must understand the science of the symbol, a way of knowing that is as rigorous as any modern physics, yet far more profound in its implications for the human soul. In our modern tongue, we often use the word symbol to mean something that is not real. We say it's just a symbol, implying that it is a mere placeholder for a physical reality. But for masters of tradition like René Guénon or the philosopher Jean Borella, this is a total inversion of the truth. A symbol is not a substitute for reality. It is a participation in a higher reality. Think of it this way. A map is a sign that points to a city, but a symbol is more like a window. It doesn't just tell you about the light, it allows the light to enter the room. When the ancients looked at the world, they didn't see a thing to be used, they saw a meaning to be lived. This transition from a world of meanings to a world of things is what Mircea Eliade called the move from the sacred to the profane. In the sacred world, nothing is just what it seems. A rock is not just a mineral, it is a manifestation of stability, of the enduring strength of the earth. A river is not just H2O, it is the flow of time, the purification of the spirit, the eternal return to the source. Everything in the material world was seen as a reflection of something in the spiritual world. This is the famous Hermetic principle. As above, so below. The earth was a mirror of heaven, and to live a human life was to learn how to read that mirror. But when we killed the myths, we smashed the mirror. We decided that the only things that were real were the things we could measure with a ruler or weigh on a scale. We chose the quantity over the quality. This is the core of the crisis. By focusing entirely on the what of the world, we completely forgot the why. We became like people who are so obsessed with the ink and paper of a book that they have forgotten how to read the story written on the pages. We can tell you the chemical composition of the ink, and we can measure the thickness of the paper, but we have no idea what the book is saying. Schwaller de Lubitsch, the great explorer of Egyptian mystery, suggested that the ancients possessed a functional intelligence that we have almost entirely lost. He argued that the hieroglyphs of Egypt or the proportions of the Temple of Luxor were not just artistic choices, they were a sophisticated technology of the soul. They were designed to trigger a specific state of consciousness, to align the individual mind with the cosmic mind. For Lubitsch, the symbol was the only language capable of expressing the complex, multidimensional nature of reality. Logic can only handle one thing at a time, but a symbol can hold 1,000 truths simultaneously, without contradiction. Imagine the symbol of the cross or the lotus or the Ouroboros. These are not just ideas, they are geometric keys that unlock certain chambers of the heart. When we lived within a mythic framework, these symbols acted as anchors. They kept us connected to the axis mundi, the central pillar of the universe that connects the underworld, the earth, and the heavens. Without this anchor, we are adrift. We are like astronauts whose tether to the ship has been cut, floating aimlessly in a void that we mistakenly call freedom. The consequence of this loss is a profound sense of disenchantment. We have cleansed the world of its spirits, its demons and its gods, thinking we were making it safer and more logical. But instead we made it flat. We made it boring. And because the human soul cannot survive in a flat world, it begins to create shadow myths. This is what the philosopher Eric Voegelin observed. When a society loses its connection to the transcendent, it doesn't become rational, it becomes ideological. It takes a worldly idea, like a political movement or a technological utopia, and tries to turn it into a god. But these are dead gods. They have no depth, no history, and no soul. They are caricatures of the sacred, and they lead only to fanaticism and despair. So how do we begin to reclaim this symbolic vision? How do we move from the mode of the machine to the mode of the myth? It starts with a simple but radical shift in how you look at your own life. Think about the signs in your day. Not the literal street signs, but the patterns. Have you ever noticed how a certain theme seems to follow you through a week? A specific word, an animal, a recurring dream, or a sudden, unexplained memory? In our modern world, we call this coincidence or brain noise. But in the mythic world, these are calls. They are the environment trying to speak to you in the only language it has left. The practical application of this ancient wisdom is the cultivation of the contemplative gaze. Most of the time we look at things to see how we can use them. We look at a chair to see if we can sit. We look at a person to see what they want from us. This is utilitarian vision. To see symbolically, you must learn to look at something for its own sake, without wanting anything from it. Imagine looking at a single candle flame in a dark room. Don't think about the physics of combustion or the price of the wax. Just look at the light. Observe how it dances, how it consumes itself to give off warmth, how it is both fragile and powerful. If you look long enough, the flame stops being an object and starts being a presence. It becomes a symbol of the divine spark within yourself. This is the beginning of the re-enchantment. It is the realization that you are not living in a dead universe, but in a speaking one. The deified forces of the ancient world haven't gone anywhere. They are just waiting for us to learn their alphabet again. We have spent so much time trying to master nature that we have forgotten how to listen to it. We have built walls of concrete and glass to protect ourselves from the mystery, but the mystery is persistent. It leaks through the cracks in our logic. It whispers to us in the moments between our thoughts. What if the deities we think we've outgrown are actually the very structures of our own consciousness? What if, when the Greeks spoke of Ares or Aphrodite, they weren't just making up stories, but were describing the energies that drive every human action? When we ignore these energies, they don't disappear. They go underground. They become complexes, as Jung would say. They become the hidden masters of our behavior, driving us to do things we don't understand and to feel things we can't explain. We think we are being rational, but we are often just being played by gods we refuse to name. The tragedy of the modern world is not that we have lost our faith, but that we have lost our imagination in the deepest sense of the word. We have lost the ability to imagine a world that is bigger than our own ego. We are trapped in the prison of the literal. Everything must mean exactly what it says and nothing more. But the soul is not literal. The soul is metaphorical. It speaks in dreams, in art, and in myths. By forcing the soul to live in a literal world, we are slowly suffocating it. So I ask you, where is the sacred hiding in your life? In the middle of your busy, digital, profane existence, where is the window that still lets the light in? Perhaps it's in the way the morning light hits your kitchen table, or in the inexplicable feeling of peace you get when you walk through a forest. These are not just feelings. These are signals of transcendence. They are invitations to stop being an observer and to start being a participant in the great cosmic story. If we want to stop being orphans, we have to stop treating the world like a storehouse and start treating it like a sanctuary. We have to realize that the meaning of life is not something we create, but something we discover. It is already there, woven into the fabric of the stars and the cells of our bodies. We just have to learn how to see it. But even if we learn to see the symbols, we still face a greater challenge. We live in a world that is designed to drown out the symbolic. We live in a world of simulacra, of fake myths and digital gods that promise to fulfill us, but leave us emptier than before. In our next stage, we must explore how we became slaves to the imitation and how we can tell the difference between a true myth that heals and a false ideology that consumes. we must look at the exile of the gods and how their absence has created the monsters of the modern age. Is it possible that our anxiety is not a glitch in our biology, but a message from the deific forces we've tried to bury? What if the void we feel is actually a doorway? We must now face a difficult truth. The human psyche cannot tolerate a vacuum. When we evicted the gods from our temples and the myths from our hearts, we didn't actually clear the stage. We only invited new, more dangerous actors to take their place. This is the great irony of the modern age. We pride ourselves on being secular, rational, and free from ancient superstitions, yet we are more possessed by invisible forces than ever before. We have replaced the sacred myth with the profane ideology. Eric Voegelin, one of the most profound thinkers of the 20th century, observed that when a society tries to kill God, it doesn't actually become more rational. Instead, it immanentizes the eschaton. This is a complex way of saying that we take the deep, spiritual hope for heaven or enlightenment and try to force it into the material world. We try to build paradise here through politics, through technology, or through social engineering. But because these things are material and finite, they can never satisfy the infinite hunger of the soul. The result is not a utopia, but a series of secular religions that demand total devotion and offer no salvation. Think about the way we talk about our modern isms, whether they are political, scientific, or social. They have their own priests, their own dogmas, their own heretics, and their own rituals of excommunication. We defend our chosen ideologies with a fervor that would put a medieval crusader to shame. This is because these ideologies are actually simulacra of myths. They are hollowed-out versions of the sacred. They use the energy of our religious impulse, but they direct it toward worldly ends. As Jean Borella pointed out, a modern sign is often a degraded symbol. It has the outer shape of something meaningful, but it is empty of spiritual substance. It is a map of a city that no longer exists. This is the state of the modern orphan. We are surrounded by these hollow myths that promise us identity and purpose, yet we feel more fragmented and isolated than ever. We have traded the soul of the world for the algorithm of the crowd. We look for meaning in likes, in consumption, or in being on the right side of history, but these things are like drinking salt water to quench a thirst. They only make the void larger. We have forgotten that the true myth was never meant to tell us what to think. It was meant to show us how to be. Consider Nietzsche's madman, who ran into the marketplace shouting that God is dead. Most people read this as a celebration of atheism, but Nietzsche was terrified. He knew that if the center of our cosmic meaning was gone, the horizon would be wiped away. He asked, "Is there still any up or down? Are we not straying as through an infinite nothing?" When the vertical connection to the divine is cut, everything becomes horizontal. Life becomes a flat competition for power, for resources, and for attention. Without the gods to provide a scale of value, the strongest simply impose their will on the weakest. The will to power becomes the only law in a world without wonder. This is where we find the monsters of our age, when the archetypal forces of the psyche are denied their natural expression in myth and ritual. They don't go away. They become shadows. A god who is not honored becomes a demon who haunts. The energy of Aries, when not channeled into the discipline of the warrior or the protection of the sacred, becomes the mindless violence of the street or the cold aggression of the boardroom. The energy of Aphrodite, when stripped of its connection to the beauty of the soul, becomes the hollow obsession with pornography or the relentless marketing of desire. We are a civilization of possessed people who believe we are enlightened. How did we get here? It started when we stopped seeing the world as a creation and started seeing it as raw material. In the traditional worldview, as taught by thinkers like Manly P. Hall and Schwaller de Lubitsch, the universe is a living organism, a great man or Macranthropos. Every part of the cosmos corresponds to a part of the human soul. To harm the world was to harm yourself. To study the stars was to study your own destiny. But in the modern world, we have objectified everything. We have turned the world into a thing to be exploited, and in doing so, we have objectified ourselves. We treat our own bodies as machines to be optimized, and our own minds as software to be programmed. This is the ultimate consequence of forgetting the myths. We have lost our humanity because we have lost our divinity. You cannot have one without the other. To be human is to stand at the intersection of the finite and the infinite. We are the bridge between the dust of the earth and the light of the stars. When we deny the light, we become nothing but dust. This is the despair of the materialist, the secret feeling that your life is a brief, meaningless spark between two eternities of darkness. But the myths tell a different story. They tell us that you are not an accident. They tell us that your life is a journey, a test and a revelation. They tell us that the deities are not external beings living on a mountaintop, but are the primordial patterns of life itself. To know thyself is to discover the pantheon that lives within you. It is to realize that your struggles are the struggles of Hercules, your grief is the grief of Demeter, and your search for truth is the search of Odin. When you live your life as a myth, every moment becomes weighted with meaning. The mundane becomes the miraculous. So, how do we spot these fake myths in our daily lives? The test is simple. A true myth expands the soul, while a fake myth inflates the ego. A true myth leads to humility, wonder, and a sense of connection to all life. A fake ideology leads to pride, anger, and a sense of superiority over those who don't get it. A true myth asks you to change yourself. A fake myth tells you that the world must change to suit you. If you look at our modern culture through this lens, you will see the temples of the simulacra everywhere. You see them in the cult of celebrity, where we worship people who are famous for being famous, treating them like the gods of Olympus without any of the wisdom or responsibility. You see them in our obsession with technology, believing that the next gadget or the next AI will finally solve the problem of human suffering. These are technological myths, promises of a salvation that is always just one update away. But a machine can never give you what a myth can. A machine can give you comfort, but only a myth can give you peace. The mystery hunter does not look for the gods in the past. He looks for their footprints in the present. He looks for the moments where the real world cracks open and something else shines through. He looks for the glitch in the matrix of the mundane. Have you ever had a moment where time seemed to stop, where the beauty of a sunset or the intensity of a conversation made you feel for just a second that you were exactly where you were supposed to be? That is the mythopoetic dimension trying to break back into your life. It is the anima mundi whispering that it hasn't given up on you even if you've given up on it. We are currently living in an interregnum, a time between worlds. The old myths have been discredited by the intellect, and the new myths haven't yet been born. We are like the people of the late Roman Empire, watching the old temples fall and wondering what will come next. But we don't have to wait for a new religion to find the sacred. We can begin the great work of re-enchantment right now, in the privacy of our own consciousness. We can choose to stop being consumers of information and start being hunters of meaning. What if the return of the gods isn't a historical event, but a psychological one? What if they are waiting for us to create a space for them in a world that has no room for the invisible? In our final movement, we will look at the practical path of the mythic life. We will explore how to live in the world but not of it, how to use the ancient keys of the soul to navigate the modern desert. We will ask the final, mind-blowing question: what if the myths are not about what happened once upon a time, but about what is happening right now inside of you? We have reached the edge of the clearing, the point where the footprints of the ancient gods disappear into the fog of our own consciousness. We have seen how the loss of myth turned our world into a machine and our souls into orphans. We have seen how our hunger for the sacred was hijacked by hollow ideologies and digital ghosts. But the question remains, the one that pulses in the silence of the night. How do we find our way back? How do we live a mythic life in a world that denies the existence of the soul? The answer begins with a radical act of rebellion against the literal. To live mythically is to refuse to see the world as just anything. It is to look at your life not as a series of random events, but as a sacred text that is still being written. The traditional masters taught that the great work was not about changing the world outside, but about transforming the internal alchemist who perceives it. If the gods have been exiled, it is because we have closed the doors of our perception. To bring them back, we must first build a temple within. This is not a metaphor, it is a practical necessity. In the noise of the modern desert, you must create a sanctuary of silence. This is your first step. It is the practice of carving out moments in your day where the world of utility cannot reach you. For the ancients, this was the role of the Sabbath or the sacred ritual. For you, it might be the 10 minutes in the morning before you touch your phone, or a walk where you look at the trees not as scenery, but as living elders. When you stop trying to use the world starts to reveal its meaning to you. The second practice is the restoration of ritual. A ritual is simply an action done with the awareness of its symbolic depth. When you drink water, you can do it like a machine, or you can do it with the awareness that you are participating in the ancient mystery of life-giving flow. When you light a candle, you're not just illuminating a room, you're honoring the light of the world that resides in your own spirit. By ritualizing the mundane, you pull the anima mundi back into your daily existence. You stop being a consumer and start being a priest of the ordinary. But there is a deeper level to this hunt. We must confront the paradox of the eternal return, as Mircea Eliade called it. We think of time as a straight line, a relentless march from the past into an unknown future. This is the source of much of our modern anxiety, the fear that we are running out of time, that we are missing out. But the mythic mind knows that time is a circle. The great stories are not over, they are happening right now. Every time you face a fear, you are Hercules facing the Hydra. Every time you seek wisdom at a great cost, you are Odin hanging from the tree. Every time you love against all odds, you are Isis gathering the fragments of the broken world. When you realize this, your personal struggles lose their smallness. Your pain is no longer just your pain. It is the universal pain of the human condition, and your victory is a victory for the light itself. This is the mind-blowing shift that the mystery hunter seeks. You are not just an observer of the myth, you are the myth in motion. You are the hero with 1,000 faces appearing in this specific moment of history to play your part. Now, consider the most profound revelation of all, one that thinkers like Schwaller de Lubitsch and Manly P. Hall hinted at in their most secret writings. What if the gods are not beings from our past, but echoes of our own future self? What if the myths are not memories of where we came from, but blueprints of what we are becoming? In the esoteric traditions, the human being is seen as a seed of the divine. The archetypes are the full-grown trees that the seed remembers as it grows. We feel the pull of the sacred because we are being called by our own destiny. If this is true, then our orphanhood is actually a puberty of the soul. We had to be separated from the collective myths of the past so that we could learn to discover the sacred individually. We had to experience the death of God so that we could find the divine within our own freedom. The darkness of the modern world is not a tomb, it is a womb. We are in the process of birthing a new way of being, one where we don't just believe in the gods, but we embody the principles they represent. This leads us to the cosmic dilemma of our time. We stand between a dead past and an unborn future. We have the tools to destroy ourselves through our own pseudo-mythos of power and technology, or we have the opportunity to participate in the re-enchantment of the universe. The choice is yours, and it is made every day in the quality of your attention. Do you choose to see a world of dead objects or a world of living symbols? Do you choose to be a victim of history or a protagonist of the mystery? The true mystery hunter knows that the greatest secret is not hidden in a cave or a lost city. It is hidden in the now. It is the realization that reality is plastic, and it reshapes itself around the heart that is brave enough to see the sacred. If you begin to live as if your life is a myth, the universe will begin to respond to you as if it is. Synchronicities will appear, dreams will speak louder, the void will start to feel like a presence. You were never truly an orphan. You were just a traveler who forgot his name. But the names of the gods are still written in your DNA, and the stars still recognize your light. The hunt for the missing gods ends not in a temple of stone, but in the silence of your own heart, where the Deus Absconditus, the hidden God, has been waiting for you all along. Liked this journey? Hit subscribe for more mysteries, and let us continue to explore the hidden layers of our reality together. And that's our hunt for now, a wild mix of documented history and tantalizing what-ifs based on bibliographical sources. What do you think? Did we truly kill the gods, or did we just forget how to look for them? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, for in this hunt, every voice is a clue.